If you don't have a framework for fundraising, you'll always feel stuck. Welcome to the Legacy Leadership Podcast, where we focus on helping Christian, founder led nonprofits get funded so that you can lead well, live whole, and leave a legacy. Today, I want to talk to you and share a basic framework for fundraising. Four basic steps that every fundraiser or fundraising system should follow to make it as successful as it possibly can be. These four steps are to plan, present, gain, and maintain. Plan, present, gain, maintain. Now, in the planning phase, there's a couple of different pieces that are involved in this. The first is defining your mission, your vision, your core programming, and your budget. When we think about mission, it defines why we exist. Why does our organization exist? What is the big problem that we're looking to solve in the world? What people are we called to help? Is there a particular geography that we feel passionate to work within? Maybe you go back to your articles of incorporation, or why was it that you first founded this organization? Our mission should give us focus, give us clarity, so that we're not constantly running after different things that may present to us, but that we have real clear focus. Because if we're going to present, we want to make sure that we have clarity in what it is that we're presenting to other people. So the first thing is to define our mission. The second is to define our vision. Now, I like to think of a 3 year picture to start with, 3 years out, that we have this vision for what it is that we want to accomplish. We think about what would our organization or our program or the things that we're doing, what would it look like 3 years from now? This is the space to dream a little bit. And I encourage you to think about what would you like to see happen 3 years from now if funding wasn't an issue. Because if we really learn to present well, to cast vision well, to gain and maintain donations, then funding won't be an issue. We have to start with vision. People ultimately support vision. They support vision more than anything else. Many times we might ask for money for salaries or budget or a deficit that we have in our organization's funding, but most people don't support that. People tend to support vision. Where are you going? What are you looking to accomplish? Another thing that I find in presenting is that we want to ask for money for the things that we're already doing. And there's this perception in people's minds that what we're already doing, we already have the funding for. Now, I know that that isn't true. For most of us as organizations, we do not have the funding. We're making it all work. Sometimes we're investing our own resources to be able to do what is currently happening. And it's an act of faith, month by month, week by week, to be able to continue to do that thing. But vision is what people ultimately support. Vision is what gets people excited to be part of it, what it is that you're doing. The third thing that you need to define is core programming. What is it that you are doing to meet the need, to solve the problem, to help the people, to make a difference in that city, that town, that village? Now, core programming doesn't have to be overly complicated in the beginning. In my book, Fundraising Momentum, I share an example of a homeless ministry that if you're helping the homeless in your city, you might start by wanting to resource them or help them out in small ways. Maybe it's just you as the founder in the beginning. You have some basic bags or kits with socks or a food bar, maybe a water bottle, things that you think might be beneficial to a homeless person if you were to pass them by on the street. You don't want to just give them money, but you want to give them something. If you are doing that regularly or repetitively, if you're doing that for more than just one person or one day, that can all of a sudden become a core program. It's what it is that you are doing to fulfill that mission and to see your vision accomplished. As you grow as an organization, your core programming might grow and expand with you. Maybe you take that to the next level, and instead of it just being you as the founder providing resources for the homeless in your city, maybe you have a team of people who are all doing it, and you are getting donations to be able to purchase these supplies. You have five or six people who are all responsible for different parts of the city to keep their eyes open for the homeless that might need one of these resource packs. And you get together and you replenish these on a regular basis, and that becomes your core program. As you grow, maybe you decide to create a resource center where you allow the homeless in your city to come and shop to get the things that they might need. That becomes your core program, and that grows into a soup kitchen and grows into a shelter and whatever else it might grow into, right? But to define your core programming is incredibly important, because if you haven't defined your mission, your vision, your core programming, then you're always asking haphazardly for what it is that you need. Once you can define your mission, vision, core programming, then you can define your budget, which then gives you specific numbers, specific amounts that you can then ask for. I find that many leaders ask for what it is that's right in front of them, and they miss the opportunities or misuse the opportunities to ask for what it is that they really needed as an organization. I remember a friend of mine doing a an event, and I had done a lot of the planning behind the scenes to recognize what this ministry really needed to grow, to expand, to accomplish what it is that they wanted to accomplish. And I would have made a $300,000 ask, and instead my friend made a $2,500 ask, because that was what she had planned in her mind that we needed just for this one particular event. And I knew the broader plan, the broader picture, because we had talked about it. We had taken time to plan, but when it came to the actual presentation, the plan wasn't there enough for the ask to happen the way that it could have. And so when she asked for 2,500, she got 2,500. Now, she could have asked for more and probably would have gotten more, but it really comes down to being solid on our plan. Do we really know our mission? Do we have our vision defined? Do we know where it is that we are going? Do we have our core programming defined? What it is that we're looking to do? How we're going to solve that problem? And then have we really defined and understood our budget? Do we really believe in what it is that we're asking people for? That's all part of the planning phase. And until we've done the planning, we shouldn't go to step two of presenting. Presenting happens once we already have the plan, when we already know what it is that we need, we know what it is that we're going to do, because there's five questions that every presentation should answer. And if you haven't done the planning, then you can't effectively answer these questions. The five questions are: who are you? What are you doing? Why is it important? What are you asking for? And why does it matter to the person you're asking? Again, those questions are: who are you? What are you doing? Why does it matter? What are you asking for? And why does it matter to the person you're asking? These five questions should be answered in every single one of our presentations. Who are you could start with an introduction of yourself and then could flow into who is your organization, defined by your mission. Your mission allows you to answer that question of who are you? What are you doing is defined by your vision and your core programming. What we're doing is looking to have every homeless person resourced in our city for them to be able to have what it is for them to be able to live day to day. And we have this core programming of handing out resource packs as we see the homeless in our city and we encounter them. We have these packs of resources that we're able to share with them, who we are and what we're doing. Now, why it's important is an incredibly important piece for us to answer, and one that many of us don't. We assume that just because we know why it's important, that every person we're presenting to would know why it's important. But that's not really the case. In the case of this homeless ministry, it might be important for them to have the resources because we are having homeless die in our city because they're getting too cold or they're getting dehydrated or they don't have enough food or maybe we have people that are eating food out of the dumpster because they can't find food anywhere else, and by us giving out these resource packs that have food, it's helping them to be able to have what it is that they need. I'm not saying that's the most effective method of helping people get food, but just for the example, we need to explain to people why it's important, the things that we're doing. So, who we are, what are we doing? Why is it important? And oftentimes I find that we can share statistics, but we also need to share stories. I remember in my organization, we were really good at sharing statistics, really good at knowing our numbers, but weren't the best at sharing stories around those things. The facts tell and stories sell. Now, we're not selling, but we're asking people to get involved in our organization. We don't want to just focus on the facts, just focused on the statistics, but we want to connect with people emotionally. We want them to connect with our organization and our mission emotionally. I remember when we were running an organization where we had schools in Haiti, and I could tell you the numbers of our schools. We had 3,000 children in school. We had 2,000 people sponsoring children in that school. We had kids, we had 100% of our kids made it through sixth grade. We were giving them food every single day and new school books every year. And I could tell you all the facts about our program, but when I could share a specific story about maybe my sponsored child, and I could tell you the difference that going to school made for him. I remember one of the kids that I was sponsoring, his name was Devadi. He was the first boy that my wife and I sponsored together after we were married. And we started sponsoring him at a very young age. When we first started the school, he was one of our early students that came into the school, and it was just him and his mom. They were actually living on top of the school. Their house had been destroyed in a hurricane, and we had helped them get into housing. And it was just him and his mom. He didn't have a dad or no father that was around to be able to help raise him. And we were able to provide him an education, but not just education. He was able to eat every single day when he came to school. He had other mentors and teachers that were around to fill that gap of leadership and mentorship and investment that he needed without having a father around to give it to him. And as David E. grew up, he gained skills and being able to provide for his own family, to be able to work jobs. He actually, I remember at one point, had me over his house and showed me guinea pigs that he was raising to be able to provide food for his family. Yes, they eat guinea pigs in Haiti. Maybe some of you think that's gross or, have guinea pigs as pets and are kind of freaked out by that, but that's okay. That was one of the things that he did to be able to provide. And he went through elementary school and went through high school, right? So I could go through and tell you about Devadi, and there is a different level of emotional connection to a particular child. Instead of me just sharing the facts about how many children I have, I can share about one specific child and their story, and then use that story as a representation of all the other children that were in my school. Facts, stories. We need both of them, right? But I want to explain to people again in my presentation, who am I? What am I doing? Why does it matter? Why did it matter to Dave ID? Why did it matter that I had a school, that he had mentors, that he had food? And that same reason why it mattered to him matters to all of the other kids that I was helping out. The fourth thing is one that a lot of us as leaders really struggle with, and it's what am I asking for? We have to make an ask, or people won't respond. Very few people respond without being asked. They just assume that you're telling them a nice story about what it is that you're doing, that you're making an introduction. They assume that if you don't ask, you already have the funding for what it is that you need. Again, as leaders, we think that's crazy. Everybody should know that we have a need. If we're making a presentation, they should know that we need funding for our organization, but it's important that we ask. We also want to ask specifically for what it is that we need. We want to invite people to partner with us at the area and level that we have need. And so, again, if I've planned well, then I know what my vision is. I know where I'm going. I know what I need to get there. I know what my core programming is. I know my budget. And so, as I'm talking, I might know in that case that every single child in my school, I need $41 for somebody to sponsor them. I might know that I need $200,000 to build a new school in the new village that we just launched into. And so I might ask for somebody to make a donation towards that $200,000 project. I might ask them to sponsor a child for $41. I need to know very specifically what it is that I'm asking for. And then the last piece is why does it matter to the person I'm asking? Why does it matter to the person I'm asking? Well, maybe they want to make a difference in the world. Maybe they want to see people helped. Maybe if it's an organization, they want to have some good PR. Who am I? What am I doing? Why does it matter? What am I asking for? And why does it matter specifically to the person I'm asking? So we've covered the first two pieces of this basic framework to plan, to present, and then we have gain and maintain. I'm not going to spend a long time on these two. You can go get my book, Fundraising Momentum, and learn a lot more about all of these different pieces, about this framework, how to implement it in your organization. But to gain is that moment where we gain the donation. Somebody writes the check, they donate online, they give towards what it is that we're doing. And then maintain is to maintain that relationship, to keep up with that person, to not just get the donation and then ghost them, but to maintain the relationship so that we have partners who want to give over and over and over. And so I want to encourage you this week to think about these four different steps. And I want you to think about which one are you the weakest in right now? Where do you feel like you're struggling? Is it in the planning phase and you really haven't defined your mission and vision? Maybe you don't know your budget and therefore you don't really have the confidence in asking for somebody to donate to your ministry. Are you weakest in presenting, really knowing how to explain what it is you're doing in your organization and invite other people into that mission with you? Maybe you struggle in the gaining. Maybe you lack some of the basic tools that are needed, like a donation page or a website. You struggle in getting somebody to actually write the check or agree to support your organization. Maybe you are weak in the maintaining. You get people to say yes once, but then those one-time donors never turn into repeat donations. Whichever of these areas that you struggle in, I want to encourage you to put some focus into that area. Recognize it, become aware of it. The first step in improving or changing anything is awareness. And if you want to learn how to implement this framework in your organization, I would encourage you to go check out my book, Fundraising Momentum. You can find it on Amazon. You could go to my website, legacyleadershipsystem.com, and there's links to my book there. And I'll put the link in the show notes as well. I want to encourage you this week to continue to focus on these four basic steps of your framework: to plan, present, gain, and maintain. Implement a framework for fundraising so that you don't feel stuck anymore.